Hardware is a killer robot movie set in a bleak and grimy cyberpunk future. Today we'll talk about the film's low-budget charm, practical effects, and extensive world building, which it achieves despite being mostly set in a single apartment. Welcome everyone to the Atomic Cinema Experiment. I am Peter, and joining me, as always, is Tara.
Greetings, citizens.
That's a very quiet hello.
Greetings, citizens.
Okay, all right, that was the opposite. Oh dear. This is a science fiction movie podcast. We get together and we talk about sci-fi movies. That simple. We're still in 90s season. We're drawing towards the end of the movies in 90s season. Obviously, we're not going to do our top 25 90s sci-fi movies until the end of the year, around New Year's kind of time. But the movie we're doing today is Hardware from 1990, which is a movie I saw probably about a decade or so ago and remembered being interesting, so I put it on the list because it was one that I needed to revisit before we could. I know Tara hadn't seen it, so it was like a perfect, yeah, let's do this. And
hadn't even heard of it.
Yeah, so which is cool. So yeah, it's 1990. It's set in a sort of dystopia, slightly post-apocalyptic world. Radiation's kind of bad in a lot of parts of the world. It sounds like there's a constant war going on somewhere in what they refer to as the zone. But it's very cyberpunk, I guess, is the other thing. There's a lot of like sort of old, future, retro, but new technology, you know, that kind of thing. And stars Jill. Well, that's a character, isn't it? A star, but Jill's kind of like our main character who lives in an apartment, and she's kind of like a sculptor who makes like art out of like old tech and things like that. And then her kind of on again, off again boyfriend, Moses, played by Dylan McDermott, kind of arrives back from fighting in the zone just in time for Christmas. It's technically a Christmas movie, although you never really see anything that makes you feel like Christmas. It's just, they just mention that it's Christmas.
I think we see a menorah at one point.
Oh, okay. I think there's a commercial on TV for
with reindeer puppets or costumes. Yeah.
It was reindeer meat popsicles, which are radiation free, which you can get for the Christmas season. So that stuck out to me. But the plot of it though is that Moses ends up from a drifter ends up buying like a scrap robot or cyborg, which this drifter has found out in the wasteland desert. Kind of, it's a very Mad Max style opening where this guy with the hat is walking through and finds this robot in the sand, and he takes it to Jill because she likes making stuff out of like parts and things. But this robot, of course, is going to wake up and maybe be dangerous. So it's that type of movie. So we'll get into it. We'll start spoiler free, of course, as we always do. We'll give you a warning before we get into spoilers. But I shall simply begin with the question, Tara, what did you make of Hardware?
I liked it. I liked the movie. I wasn't sure at first, actually, because I thought it was, there's a lot of stuff that was shot very, not confusingly, but like harshly.
Okay.
It was like literally kind of difficult to watch. But then there are some other shots where I'm like, this is really shot beautifully. Like, it looks really good.
It's very well directed for sure. Like, that's the thing. It's obviously a very low budget, relatively low budget movie from 1990. And, but it like, anyway, it's mostly set in this apartment and like the landing and maybe the staircase of the apartment building. There's not a lot of locations after the first 10 minutes, but it always like feels like an interesting world to be in, I guess is what I would say.
Yeah, and I think there's a lot you can glean out of this as far as the post-apocalyptic future and what it's trying to say about modern day America and stuff like that. But there seems to be a lot of biblical stuff that I just didn't follow as well, like a lot of it. But I'm sure there's more to it than I was able to glean myself.
Yeah, I don't think that's a lens we're going to look through it as, because neither one of us are going to catch the more biblical like references.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, there's like a quote at the start from like Mark 13 or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
But
yeah, I don't know. Maybe it's about like the the stuff about plagues
Yeah.
But shit like that.
I didn't feel lacking though. I didn't feel the movie was lacking in its meaning just because I didn't get that side of it though. I'm sure that enhances it if you know that shit. But I feel like it was hinting at this larger world. It was saying a lot about humans and like kind of like where we're heading as a race, as a people, and
It's a planet.
Yeah, and it's all pretty doom and gloom and not so hot. So yeah, it's a pretty dour look at the future. What's that?
It's a very hot future.
Very hot, yes. Heat wave is continuing. Rain's like a once in a blue moon luxury. Apparently, radiation's up all over the place. There's people being born, slightly off because their parents have been exposed to too much radiation. So there's mutations and things like. You don't see a lot of it. I mean, all you really see in the movie is a couple of people who are too short. There's like a sort of little person playing a character at one point, and it's implied that this has happened because of radiation. But there's kind of an implication of the larger world having more extreme things and stuff like that. So it does a lot to stoke your imagination and what the rest of the world is, which I think any low budget movie, if it can capture that feeling, is good.
I got pretty excited when I thought this movie was turning into a new version of Demon Seed.
It doesn't quite go down that route. No, it's just more.
It gets pretty close though.
Yeah, obviously there's like an AI in the house, as it were, but there's. So it's a bit more kind of Terminator-y, I guess. It's almost like if you tried to set Terminator in just like one apartment. that's the pitch. Because it's not a super original. Like you can sort of see a lot of where it's taking from elsewhere. There's a bit of Terminator in here. There's a bit of Alien. She's kind of a Ripley-esque character as Jill. There's definitely parts taken from other big movies, but it does kind of feel like it's got its own identity by the end, which is nice. Yeah, I like the movie. I
don't like the soundtrack very much. I found the soundtrack to be a bit too much. It seems to be a movie that has a lot of like musicians in it as well.
There's a couple of cameos. I do like one of the songs. There's one song that plays that I quite like. The rest of it was just kind of general rock music that I wasn't super into.
Well, it's not just this. It's not just that, but it's also the score. I thought the score was a bit much sometimes. I liked it more in the later parts of the film, but in the beginning, I thought I'm not getting into it because I'm sort of being like, this music's just too much.
I don't know if I remember feeling that way. There's the song that plays at the start of the end credits, which also plays, I think during the love scene earlier on, that I think is actually kind of unique sounding and kind of feels like it fits this world that we're watching. But then, when Motorhead starts playing, it's just kind of like, all right, okay, whatever. But I have to imagine that this film maybe helped get funding because it was, working. It was a
music video.
Yeah, we're working with these musicians because, Lemmy's got a cameo when the Motorhead song plays and stuff like that. And you got Iggy Pop is kind of like the disc jockey who's like on the radio talking about the world, and he's kind of very upbeat about the fact that the world is going to shit and like, promoting going to war and all sorts of stuff. So there's all that sort of. I like the movie. I think I remembered liking it when I first saw it, and I didn't really remember a whole lot about where it went, other than boyfriend brings like defunct robot back to girlfriend's like place. I didn't really remember like the back half of the movie that much, and I was wondering like, is that because like I like the feel of it and the style, but maybe it was not all their plot, and it's not an original plot. But I was happy when I watched it this time. Where I was like, no, I'm actually quite into like this, fight for survival and kind of the just the way it's unfolding. But I think the big star of it though is just the feel of it and how everything looks, and like this like very cyberpunk, grimy, all these old computer keyboards and like monitors, and everything feels just kind of gone to shit. There's kind of a critique of the world, and overpopulation's a theme, like sort of just how bad recreational drug use has got, to the point where like the character of Shades in this at one point is just like we don't even know what he's taking, but he's on something. Like he's out of it on something. So there's all this.
What else are you gonna do in the apocalyptic desert?
And well, they're not in the desert though. They're in like the urban part. This is more like the mega city one of the world that they're in.
Yeah, everything is just too hot. That's what I meant. But,
yeah. Yeah.
Did you get vibes of like, okay, so I just watched the first Terrifier, and I've seen, obviously I saw Terrifier 2, and I know you just watched Terrifier 2. The kind of style that, is it Damien Leone is going for, kind of felt like this a little bit.
Oh, I can see it. Yeah, I don't know if it's specifically this sort of thing that's. I mean, it wouldn't surprise me if you've seen this and likes
it. It might just be a time period or that punk feel to it or something. But I don't know. I was just getting like the same kind of vibe, and I like that vibe.
Oh, it's a good vibe. For sure. I love this vibe. But this is I mean, this is a 1990 movie, so obviously it's 90s season. But this is obviously
it feels pretty 80s still.
Yeah, that's obviously something that was shot in 89 or thereabouts and is right on the turn of the decade, so you always get a little bit of crossover at that turning point, and I think this is an example of that.
It's not actually a American movie, so it also has that feel of being I don't know, just something a little bit off. It's not quite the Hollywood movie that you expect.
For the better. That's probably why it feels good, is because it feels
it's got that I don't want to say like alien feel to it, but because that conjures a different image, but like it feels like it's not like independent, but it's like when you watch a Bollywood movie or something, I'm like, it looks like Hollywood, but something's off. Something's just different.
I don't know why you went with Bollywood. You could just say European. Because Bollywood conjures up a very specific type of different, and I don't think that's what this is either. This
I know, but like it's going for it. It's going for Hollywood, but there's something a little bit off. Okay, like a spaghetti western would be, you know.
I feel like the examples you're picking are all too extreme, but I get what you're saying.
It's just a nudge of it. Just a smidge.
Why don't you just bring up Fifth Element? We just did Fifth Element. That's a French movie, technically.
Yeah. And
that feels different because it's got a different art style and sort of style to it. But
I was a bit negative on that. I don't want to... I don't want to bring it up.
But it's a better example of what you're saying here, I think.
Well, you know what I mean.
And then it's actually got American stars and things. And this also does, like, its two leads are both American. The other actors are, some of them are doing American accents, some of them aren't. But, you know, because Shades isn't. I think Shades Irish, I want to say. Yeah, like a kind of...
I'm not great at those accents. I don't know.
Let me see. Northern Ireland, close enough. That more or less counts. It's a little different, but it more or less counts. So you got like Dylan McDermott in the lead role, and you've got Stacey Travis, who I've not heard of from anything else, playing Jill. In Shades is a guy named John Lynch. Tara decided to give me some trivia before we start. I don't know why she told me this off the podcast so that my reaction couldn't be here, but why don't you give me the trivia again for the audience?
Yeah, so I read that initially the director wanted to get Bill Paxton to play the lead Moses and Jeffrey Combs to be Shades, but unfortunately there was some sort of deal that Paxton had to do Navy SEALs or something instead. But he really wanted to do this movie, and Jeffrey Combs couldn't do it because they had too many Americans, and it's a British company, and they're like, you know, you already have 2 Americans in the lead, you can't have more than that. So he wasn't able to do it. And I read that like around the beginning of the movie. I just started looking things up, and I was just like, the whole rest of the movie I was just like, I had to imagine what those roles would be like with those actors that I love so much. That would have made this movie such a classic.
Look, I still like this movie a lot. I cannot deny that the combination of Bill Paxton and
Jeffrey Combs.
I was trying to remember his last name, was there? The combination of those two wouldn't have like just added an extra special layer to it.
So amazing, yeah.
Because Dylan McDermott, I wouldn't describe as, he's fine, I guess. Like, he's just kind of there.
I guess. Yeah, I don't know. He's more of a rom-com guy.
Do you know what I do appreciate, though? Is I think if it was Bill Paxton, it would have maybe... Like, it would have probably added a fun element to the movie, because Bill Paxton's great. But I think part of this movie is that, like, it sort of pretends that he's going to be the main character, but it's really Jill who's the main character. And I think he almost fits this movie that he's not that charismatic because like it kind of naturally leads you into rooting for her more than him. I don't know. I
liked her though. Stacey Travis, I don't know.
That's her name. Yeah.
I liked her. She looks like Emma Stone to me, but I thought she was good. I couldn't help but wonder, like, if there's a reason we haven't heard of her, given who is producing the movie.
Maybe
she ended up on a list. Well, this is a Harvey Weinstein production, so, you know, maybe there's a reason she disappeared.
Yeah.
Never became a name.
I mean,
she worked. She still worked, but she wasn't, like, somebody we knew.
Yeah, that's one of those sad things now is whenever I notice those Weinstein names popping up at the, you know, as producers on a movie, like, and you can't escape it because, like, you know, a lot of Tarantino's movies, but almost all of them up until, you know, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, I think it's the only one that isn't technically, have their names on them. You know, you see their names on the early Scream movies. You know, you can't escape them. They're on a lot of big stuff. So, it's just, I don't know, it's a shame. It does, because there's a character in this actually who's like there's a creepy stalker, like neighbor character who's spying on Jill a lot.
Who likes to watch.
Who watches through a telescope, and he's got a lot of really obscene dialogue and stuff like that. And I think separating it from the fact, like, I think obviously when you see Weinstein's name attached to it, like, it's hard not to like connect the two and go, oh, that's funny. They based a character on the creepy producer that was involved. But removing like that side of it away, I do think it's interesting because this character, like, he felt like the sort of shithead that you get on like 4chan or maybe on the worst parts of subreddit. You know, like this ultra sexist, entitled pervert character, and the way he talks to Jill, the way he's got these fantasies that he wants to, like, and we'll get into all this in spoilers, exactly what we're talking about here.
His dialogue is so ugh.
Yeah, it's like immediately he is like so over, like he reads like someone who responds on Twitter with a dick pic. Like, that's how he reads when he starts speaking.
Yeah, and he's played by Porkins. He has a different name, yeah, obviously, but he's Porkins from Star Wars.
I'm glad you said who that was, because I didn't know who Porkins was.
What? You don't know who Porkins is?
No, who's Porkins in Star Wars?
He's Red 8, is it? One of the fighter pilots.
That's practically a cameo. Like, I know who Porkins is.
They came from behind.
I don't know who Porkins is. He wants to do a lot of porking in this. I can tell you that. So yeah,
I'm surprised he was even comfortable playing this character.
I mean, actors like to take those types of roles, though, don't they? Like to, like, I want to take the extreme role that I can really be an actor in.
Yeah, he is a thespian.
Because they always love playing like murderers and killers and stuff. Because I'm going to, like, you know.
Yeah, they get to go all out.
Yeah, they get to really.
They get to go big.
Exactly. So I can see the appeal for why you maybe wanted to do this role. And you'd hope it's that, and not that he like identifies with it too much. He's like, oh, I can play this. Yeah, that's me.
No, I think he has some other roles too that he's known for. I can't think of any, but like, I was looking at them, and he's got some good stuff under his belt too. Sure.
I mean, obviously he's the ultimate. And a movie like this that kind of, you know, becomes semi, you know, horror as it goes on, because you've got this, you know, killer robot. He's the ultimate, like, okay, you've given us someone who we cannot wait to see be brutally murdered. Like, that's what you're kind of, that's what he's there for ultimately. I think there's some larger thematic stuff that he's also there to represent. I think the idea of like, you know, I'm joking about it, the movie seeing the future and giving us this type of like online persona that you see and hear about on the internet. But I do actually think that is an important part of the movie, and that it's kind of like, okay, this is someone
a bit prophetic also.
Yeah, this is someone whose brain's been rotted by, like, his view of women's been altered by the media he consumes. You know, whether that's like just, you know, nothing but porn or whatever. But he's altered like how he looks at the world, and he's become this creep as a result of it. I think that fits into everything else the movie's saying about the direction of humanity because of like what we've allowed to happen or do or whatever. So. you know, I do think there's more to it than just, you know, he's like the asshole who we're going to enjoy being killed. But it works as that as well. Be like, yay, kill the asshole, kill the asshole. Like, you know, so, you know, it's a fun movie. Like, I think as long as you appreciate the low budget quality of it and you're into kind of some of the, it's not afraid to be a little cheesy with a little bit of its dialogue here or there. You know, there's a couple of moments, but by and large, though, I found myself getting really into it. And there's a moment actually in the third act that I was ready to be annoyed because I didn't remember how it ended at all. And there's a moment where I was like, you can't be doing this. This is bad. And luckily it doesn't. But there's a moment where I really thought it was pulling something, and I was like, oh.
Yeah. Yeah, I was worried about that too. I was like, well, that's a shock.
Yeah. It would have been a very weird direction to take the ending in. So I'm glad it didn't. So, all very good. But yes. I mean, you like the tactile old school like computer buttons and like wires and, you know.
Oh yeah. I really like the design of the cyborg as well.
Yeah, there's a lot of like little pipes and metal parts and, you know, like it's the same thing we like about the Borg or Tetsuo or, you know, that cyberpunk horror kind of stuff. Yeah,
definitely. There's some good I don't know if it's done with like stop motion or something of like wires moving and coming together on their seemingly on their own, but there is something, bringing it together. I like all those shots, and it's all done. Obviously, it's all practical, and it looks really good.
And obviously, it's talking about the future of it's American characters primarily, and it's the future of America. There's no accident that, you know, before it comes alive, Jill spray paints the helmet of the robot and the American flag, you know, so the once it's fully formed, it's got, you know, the stars and stripes on its head. I don't think that's an accident. That's a very intentional, you know, the country itself and the body of the country is what's ultimately dooming the planet kind of idea. So it's a very political movie, and it's kind of weird to say that because it's just a killer robot movie. But no, there's a lot of politics in this.
The thing that I found a bit frustrating is I didn't like any of the POV stuff from the cyborg. I found it just hard to watch. You know, a lot of that just was, I couldn't make anything out, and it was a bit frustrating. And they used it a lot. Or like the point of view shots from like the pervert looking through his telescope and stuff like that.
Which has like, because she has the curtains down, so it's like infrared going through the curtain that he's looking at or something like that.
Yeah, it just doesn't. I don't know. There's a lot of stuff on the screen as well. I didn't enjoy those. I just didn't like the way it looked. I mean, they went for a thing, and I think that they could have done a bit better.
I think they went for something to look kind of futuristic for the time period, and also to obscure, because like as much as there's a lot of implied nudity, there's not an actual lot. Like I think they were trying to avoid showing the naughty bits by having this like sort of distorted colors and stuff, so you only get like a vague shape, which is fair enough. Like I can kind of respect that, but I think that's what they were going for with that.
I think so too. I just don't think that it works all that well. I think you could have cleaned it up a little bit more to, I don't know, just make it easier to look at even.
That's fair. I kind of I think it has a bit of a charm because it is kind of rough, because it's like this, you know, movie from this time period with this low budget kind of look to it. But at the same time, I do also agree that it's like when it's intercutting a lot with the action stuff, especially when the actual stalking scenes are happening with the robot, it's like, it makes it a little harder to kind of like the flow is a little bit interrupted. Also, they do call it a cyborg in the movie, which is why we've kind of said it a few times, but technically this is not a cyborg, it's an android, because a cyborg is it needs to be mixed with some sort of living element. So a Terminator is a cyborg because it's got the living tissue over the skeleton.
What about our lead guy? What about Moses? He's got a cybernetic arm.
Oh, that's true. I don't know if one cybernetic part makes you a cyborg, or if you need to like have a quota.
I don't know either. Like, is there like a threshold?
Yeah, it looks like he's lost his arm or his hand in like, you know, battle or something. So he's got this. It's very Power Glove looking. It's just like this Power Glove so bad. Force glove. A little bit of that. But it's not doing anything silly though. It smells
so bad.
It's not doing anything silly though, and I do like the little touch. When he's in the shower, you can see that there's like little tubes that come from it into his arm. I thought that was a nice little touch, but yeah, It's just this. I don't know. I guess it's setting up a part of the world that this is a thing that happens. You know, they've got cybernetic limbs
it's
and
like
stuff.
maybe it's taking a little bit from RoboCop. You know, you just lose an arm and get a Nike arm.
Yeah, I think there's a little bit of Mad Max. There's a little bit of Blade Runner. There's a lot of Terminator. There's a lot of Alien.
Demon Seed.
There's a little bit of Demon Seed. I'll give you that. Well, that's the thing. Like, part of the thing that the movie does is that the robot, when it kills someone, might absorb like some of the people that it's taken. So I don't think it's an accident that after the I'm not going to get spoilers, but I would basically say I think there's some intentional parallels when the robot's stalking her compared to the pervert who was like sort of spying on her before. I think there's some intentional kind of parallels between the two. It's just that one is, you know, the end goals are perhaps different and they've got different driving forces, but there's definitely this idea that if the perverts aren't going to come after her, it'll be the government that comes after her, or it'll be the man that comes after her, you know, like there's this idea that she's a victim from multiple potential avenues. And that's not to say that she's this weak character. She's actually a very sort of tough, like, independent character who tries to keep to herself and ultimately is going to fight back and stuff. There's a lot of talk in the movie from her boyfriend that, you know, he wants to be there, and if he's not there, he wants Shades to keep an eye on her, to keep her safe and protect her. But ultimately, the movie's kind of about how she didn't need no man. She's going to fight herself.
You say that, but she definitely does want him like to be around, and she tells him specifically that she's upset that he went away and left her alone.
Oh yeah, when I say doesn't need no man, I don't mean doesn't want like the relationship and doesn't want the affection. I just mean doesn't need protection. You know, she's strong, she's capable of doing that on her own. But it's not that she doesn't want him as a partner, you know.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, it seems specific to like the moment like you left when you shouldn't have left.
Aye.
Okay.
I'm not sure what your point is there, though. But okay, that's fine. So yeah, I guess we can get into spoilers and talk about everything that goes on. It's kind of interesting because the movie starts with like this nomad character walking through the desert, and it's just kind of like, you know, it's atmospheric and there's some music playing as the titles are coming up, and he ultimately finds the robot in the sand. And what I think is so interesting about it is that the opening titles are playing out in this open vista of desert, and it's giving you this wider world. And I think it's just funny that the rest of the movie takes place in one building, pretty much.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, there's a little bit of build up, but once they get there early on, that's it. Like, we're basically in there for the whole movie. But yeah, so we're introduced to Moses and his friend Shades, who's picking him up. I guess he wants to surprise Jill that he's back. He's not informed her he's coming. And there's a lot of talk of like, so, you know, we get a lot of world building through these early conversations about how New York's a wasteland now, but there's a lot of stuff to steal there because a lot of people died with their valuables, whether that's valuables that are in their body or just around them. So Shades is like, we should go to New York, we should pillage and get what we can. And
but it seems like
stuff.
Moses like has a job. He's a military guy, right?
Yeah, he's got some scrap with him to, like, you know, sell to the junk dealer. But we find out throughout the movie that he's been in the military, he's been fighting in the zone, and like this is him coming back from, you know, and Jill's upset that he left in the first place, but you know she's got, you know, obviously she's happy to see him. They end up having this long love scene where they start in the shower and then we get the music with the big beat playing as they're in bed, before we eventually cut to the pervert watching them across the street, which is when it gets really spicy.
It's very disturbing, yeah.
But yeah, so, you know, it sets up this junk dealer who doesn't give him much money for it. This is where Moses takes the stuff from the nomad. He offers him some credits to take it. He sees what he can get for it from the junk dealer, but we can only get like half of what he just paid for it. He's like, no, I'll keep it. I'll just give it to the girlfriend. It's fine. She can have it for her art project.
It's Christmas after all.
But the guy keeps the hand, though, one of the hands, so he can sort of like look into it and stuff, which, you know, comes up later because he finds out it's a Mac 13 special thing. It's like it's actually not an old robot. It's a relatively new thing, and maybe this one was just one that got destroyed recently in a battle or something.
Yeah, but when we first see it, it's buried in sand.
Yeah,
in like seemingly away from everything. So yeah, I was actually surprised that it was a new model when they brought that up, because I thought it was something that was unearthed.
I guess the implication is that it's this was like a test one, like maybe they were testing it out here in like a battle situation, and that's why the remains are there, kind of thing.
Yeah, maybe. Because
at the end on the radio where the DJ's like, oh, the government are approving 3,000 more of these, so there's going to be jobs. You can all go and get jobs at the factory building these murder bots, which obviously is very cynical at the end, because we've found out that their programming basically just makes it want to kill everything. They don't target the enemy necessarily, so it's like, oh, this is just going. And there's a question if that's intentional or not, because there's a speculation from our main character that this is just this is the word she uses, America's final solution to deal with overpopulation is just to send out these murder bots and kill a lot of the poor people with robots.
Yeah, it's also a commentary on how the U.S. makes money every time it goes to war, because there is more jobs, there's more need for everybody benefits when we go to war, right? Because there's all these jobs that are available, since we need supplies and we need soldiers and everything else. Yeah.
It's not like you can just give yourself another purpose to create a lot of industry. I don't know. Something more useful.
Renewable energy or something.
Yeah, something that would actually be long-term beneficial and would never, would never not need it. But whatever. Just the thought. But I think that's a really I like those beats in the movie though. It played with that idea. Is that yeah, this could be an accident, but maybe whether or not it was intentionally designed this way or it's an accident, either way they're we don't care. We will accept the collateral damage. The people are ultimately we can accept those losses. It's interesting. Especially since as they're talking about the future and how they're going to start policing how many kids people have, they're going to set a limit, and then neuter people. So
a little, ZPG in this.
Yeah, a little bit of the ZPG,
which
plot.
I think is isn't that also a British film?
I think so. Yeah. So
maybe it was a bit more of an influence.
Maybe. I don't know why the UK is so specifically worried about overpopulation. I mean, compared to other places, it's not that overpopulated.
I don't know. That's just been on the minds.
I guess. For whatever reason, that's what people were thinking about. But I like them talking about these themes and ideas and bringing up this kind of desolate world. Because I think, part of the plot of the movie is that, much like a Terminator and Alien, it's very much about Jill gaining the strength to fight back and ultimately want to live and survive. And I'm going to live no matter what. Screw what this robot's trying to do, screw what the government or the country's trying to do to me. I'm going to live. And then cynically you hear on the radio, oh, we're going to make thousands of these things and we're going to send them out. After she's just fought this. The idea that it keeps escalating no matter what. And it's okay, you've learned to fight this thing. Now you have to do it on a regular basis.
Well, hopefully they've figured out that the vulnerability it has.
Oh yeah, well yeah. I mean, it's vulnerabilities.
Well, hopefully not. Actually.
Yeah, hopefully not. Yes, but yes, its weakness is water. If it gets wet, it'll break down. And
classic.
Yeah, but yeah, we'll get to all that. Though, because so they have their big love scene where she's happy he's back. He's he's filthy when he comes in. So they end up in the shower, and so we get his cyborg hand in the shower, caressing her and stuff. I think the camera's
a little silly.
Yeah, the camera's following it down to cop a feel of her ass, just as it fades away to the bedroom scene where they're just,
Yeah, we get a 3-inch butt crack scene.
Yes.
And then it cuts.
And then it transitions to the neighbor across the street watching through his telescope that's got the funky effects on it, and he's just saying really obscene things, running commentary you might call it, take that dick, pump it, I can't remember what else he said, but it was all things of that nature. He was breathing very heavily. There was a lot of close-ups of his mouth, licking his lips and breathing, and you know, probably an implication that there is some masturbating going on down below.
Yeah, definitely.
So,
and we also see like on his wall, he's got like shoes and artwork and stuff he's collected. It seems to be implying that he's been watching her since she was a kid, or he's had like other people.
I took it as other victims because later on when he goes to see her and he mentions when he first met her, I think I believe that's the first time he met her, and that's when the obsession started. Because
like the shoes like kind of go in order of size, so I'm like, has he just been taking her shoes like every few years or something?
I mean, maybe. I mean, the big thing is though, is like he's watching and he's seen some of this stuff happen, and he sees like the first part of the robot attack, and he ends up going over to offer his assistance because he knows at this point the boyfriend Moses gets called away by the junk dealer because the junk dealers realize what he has, and he's like, come and talk to me about this robot right now, and you know, it sets up that the robot starting to come alive, and the hand that he's got kills him on its own, and like goes to join the rest of the machine, but so that's what gets the boyfriend away. So Moses comes over, and like it turns out he like works for the security company who installs all these security systems that like lock these big like titanium doors that shut and like all the computers that control them. Like, yeah, this is the guy you want installing and knowing how to access your security details and whatnot. This is a great there's so many little things in this guy's performance that he does where he goes to like, you know, touch her at various points, or he'll step in and say something really close, and he's like, yeah, you should get someone who's closer to home, a neighbor maybe, you know, and just saying these like subtly disgusting things every so often. You're just waiting for him to get massacred by the time he does.
Yeah, I mean, she's holding her own, but you know, she does like she feel like she's always in danger.
Yeah, she feels vulnerable here. Well, that's the thing. By the end of the movie, she feels much tougher. You know, by the time we get to the end of the movie and she's whacking the robot with a baseball bat, and you know, trying to outsmart it and draw it into a trap, it's like obviously things have changed a little bit. And I think that's part of the point of this scene, is to show that she is somewhat vulnerable. But I think if this guy came over and talked to her at the end of the movie, I don't think the scene would play out the same way. I think he would encounter a much tougher chick who's, you know, ready to just beat his head in with a bat. And protect herself. I think that's part of the arc for her in the movie. Because I mean, if anything, I would say that her character in the movie starts off with hiding in her apartment, and she's sort of locked up in a fortress almost of her own creation to save herself from the world. And I think the arc for her in the movie is that by the end, it's like, no, I don't have to hide from this world. I have to live in it and try and, if not help change it, at least, you know, not let it make me live this way, kind of thing. So.
Yeah, I mean, the danger for her is her isolation, because she's, you know, trapped inside with a thing rather than trying to keep it out.
Yeah. The very thing she thought was going to be safe, these big doors end up being our biggest like hindrance as the movie goes on. Because would you believe it? The robots like, you know, mess with the controls, and they only open from the outside, and even then it's kind of 50-50 if they're going to open properly.
So the hand that kills the guy in the beginning, is it trying to get back to the body? Does it get back to the body, or does it just build a new hand? Like if you separate the parts, do they all try to grow new robots out of each part?
I mean, I assumed it was trying to get back to the main robot. I mean, I don't think it grows new parts. I think it just reassembles all the parts that are in the apartment together. It maybe steals some cables and stuff from other things to do it, but I don't think it grows anything.
Yeah. It assembles from whatever is available, you know.
Yeah.
To try to the best of its ability to recreate itself.
Yeah, it just uses parts and like, you know, other electronics that are around to try and like, you know, fill some gaps that are maybe missing from its own pieces.
I do like the design of the cyborg, but that would have been cool too, to like see like bits of television attached to its shoulder or something. Things that we can like are easy to recognize, you know, like, oh, it took from the stereo to make that piece.
Yeah, it's once Moses leaves that obviously the robot does form and wake up, and you know, first the skull wakes up and you see the eyes open and it's sort of like scanning and stuff, and then all the parts start to and that's where you get the stop motion with the wires all kind of like connecting and doing its stuff. So yeah, it forms, and she's just lucky that she sits up at the exact moment where the robot like brings down its like saw blades into the bed.
Yeah.
So we get a lot of fun stuff with her.
It's a good shot though, where it's just framed where she's in the center, and then you could, when she moves, you could see the robot behind her.
Yeah. And you get a lot of like fun stuff with the powers out, and she's sneaking around the apartment. There's even a little bit of Predator in this, because she realizes that it uses infrared, and except although she doesn't cover herself in mud to hide from it, she empties the fridge and sits in the fridge. Genius.
Good plan.
Good plan. Yeah, why not? So the robot's confused, but yeah, it kills the shit out of the pervert early on. As the movie's playing, it establishes some other characters. There's like 2 security guys in the building that are like playing chess. It establishes them because we have to have more bodies for later.
Yeah.
Pretty much. And once Moses finds the dead guy, who the junk dealer, he realizes the danger that she's in, and he calls Shades because he's closer to her to go and try and get her out of the apartment. But he's on something. He's in La La Land. He's not aware of anything. He can barely put on his trousers. So
did you think he was going to jump off, like commit suicide, like jump off the ledge or something? Because he was talking about like how beautiful the like image of a butterfly was. He's like, yeah, man, I'll get there. I thought he was going to leap over the ledge.
I don't remember thinking of it, but I can see why you're saying it though.
Yeah.
So he's trying to race back to the apartment like for a lot of the movie. So he's not actually on screen that much, but for the middle of the movie, and it really does become Jill's film. Like, she is the lead character. She's the one that's trying to survive. She's the one in jeopardy. And all these scenes, are pretty fun to watch for the most part. They're they have a kind of a low budget charm to them when she's like running from the big robot that's kind of hulking over and chasing her and whatnot. But there's fun to be had. So yeah, and there's a running thing that's kind of set up early on where there's like a downstairs neighbor who like bangs the ceiling when there's too much noise, and it happens early on when she's playing music, or no, it's when she's cutting the sculpture and she's like using the saw blade. But later on when the robot's like, I think it's when the robot's killing the pervert, there's a lot of banging.
Yeah. He's like slamming his head against the ground. And
it cuts down to the woman downstairs, and it's this, I think it's subtitled, but she's like, she's not even married. It's just a little joke, which is, it says this downstairs neighbor up because later on when Jill goes through the window and falls into the place, we have some context for where she is, and just it gives you a sense that there's other type of people in this world. It's not just like these grifters who are like building weird sculptures and salvaging things. There's like a regular family downstairs.
Did you think it was odd that so her and Moses had sex, and then he's passed out, and she's like, I gotta build some art right now. I just have to. And she's like sawing things and sanding metal and paint, like airbrush painting and stuff like that. And then it cuts to him like in the bed, and he just like talks to her, and she's right next to him. Like, whoa, she's doing all this stuff next to him, listening to like heavy metal music and stuff. And he must be real tired.
He must be real tired. She tired of it. Although I think there's actually a little bit of a read on this. Maybe I'm stretching here, but she's very much the character who's very cynical and aware of what the world's becoming, and he's just kind of like willing to let it go on by. Like, when they talk about the main themes of the movie, he's kind of like, oh no, I joined the military, I did this stuff, I just want to like be with you and kind of ignore the world. Has kind of his attitude. So the idea that he's asleep, well, she can't just be relaxed and has to like build something that represents what she thinks of the world, I think it might be just an indication that she's more aware and has opinions on what's going on, and he's been a bit more ignorant towards it and just try to get by.
I just thought, man, this world must make you really damn tired, because I don't know how anyone could sleep through that.
I agree. It's a bit silly that someone can sleep through a saw blade being used.
I thought, okay, she's in another room or something. She's there, and it's in the same room. It's crazy. But anyway, she built an altar.
This is what she puts the skull in, but I don't was even going to mention it at this point, really. I guess the fact that she builds this model, which is this American helmet that she makes out of the robot's head, in the middle of what's a lot of like melted like dolls, which represent like I would say that represents dead children, you know, effectively.
Well, yeah, because he was also listening to the radio where they're talking about the population and how people are not going to be able to have any more children. They'll get fined if they have kids, or they'll have forced sterilization, stuff like that. So
yeah, it's very clear what the symbolism is, I think. Yeah. Even though he asked, what does it mean? And she's like, I don't know, it doesn't mean anything. I'm like, no, I think it does.
No, it definitely means something, yeah.
I'm definitely getting something from it.
I also was hoping that would be like a shoulder blade ornament on the robot. Where's dead baby dolls?
Yeah, so there's a whole section here where she's like fighting the robot and hiding in the fridge, and there's just a lot of action where she's on her own and she's trying to survive. But then when others start showing up and we get like the two security guys, this is great stuff where the bigger security guy, and I say bigger, it means a bit chubbier, he ends up getting like trapped in the door, which is like slamming and opening and closed. So it's like, you know, two sliding metal doors, and it gets trapped in, and when it hits him, he actually fires his gun that he's got out and shoots his partner, like the other security guy. And I'm like, oh, that was a surprise, yeah. It gave me a chuckle though. It was kind of a funny death. And then, you know, so you've got obviously Moses jumps in and he tries to like help and fight the robot as well. And they have this big thing where, in fact, before it traps them, actually, like I think because they're all alive, because when the doors first open, they all shoot the robot.
They all shoot them. Yeah.
And they think they've won.
The robot's on fire and it's like got this like crucifixion pose.
Yep. Yeah. And it goes out the window ultimately, and they think, oh, we've won, it's went out, oh, it's over, it's all over. But of course, it's actually hanging on under the ledge, under the window, and pulls out Jill like a couple of minutes later. Because this is right after she says, like, you know, the hell with this world, I want to live. Like, you know, she's making her statement clear. I am going to live, and this world's not going to hold me down. So there's kind of like a hopeful element to that in the middle of all this, like, oh, the world's really depressing and shit, and everything's getting worse. Like, there's no hope in sight. Like, there is kind of like a strength element to it where she's like, no, I'm going to live regardless, damn it.
And then death.
Well, I thought. Yeah, I genuinely thought she died, and we were going to do the climax of the movie where now Moses is the hero avenging her death, and I'm like, that's kind of shit if this is where it's going, because you just fridged the character who felt like the main character for the lackluster male lead of the movie. Are you shitting me? But luckily that's not the case. Luckily that's not actually where it goes. She does wake up downstairs and like fights her way back up to ultimately, like, she's the one who takes on the robot and wins, kind of thing. Although Shades actually helps. Shades actually ends up being the other survivor.
Yeah, he's sobered up a little by now.
Yeah. Because there's this thing where, so one of the things we've not mentioned yet is that part of the robot's arsenal, his main method of killing, other than the saw blades and stuff, is to like inject. He's got like needles that he can pop out of his fingers.
Yeah, he's got like Borg injections.
And that injection, it's lethal, but it does this like almost cruel thing where it puts you into like a dreamlike state where you actually enjoy dying because you see something you like. And this happens to Moses, where the robot injects him and he basically imagines a situation where he's promising to Jill that he's not going away again. He's going to stay and they're going to make it work and they're going to be together. And then, you know, that's him dying, and he dies. And that's kind of the cynical thing of, like, you know, the country promising you, oh, you can achieve the American dream, you can do all these things, but you'll probably fail and you'll have a miserable life, kind of thing.
But he still, like, cuts himself open. Like, he's trying to, like, bleed out for a different kind of death still. So I think, like, a part of him knows what's happening, because he knows, because the little person is the one who made a recording, and someone was able to play it for him. But so he knows that he's been injected with this thing that's going to kill him. So he's trying to like bleed out instead. Which
maybe is like the end of his arc, that even in this moment of death, like Jill's made him aware of the world, and he like on some level like understands this is fake and it's not real, and he wants a real death, kind of thing. You know,
because he'll look down at his arm and he is hallucinating, but he's seeing like bugs and stuff crawl out of his wounds and stuff like that. Yeah. So it's not all, you know, rainbows and unicorns.
But I like that idea that he's like he's learned the value of like the truth. But effectively, he doesn't want to die in the lie of like what the robot's giving him, which represents the system or the country or the government or whatever you want to call it. So this idea that he's like, no, I'm not accepting the lie that you're giving me. I want to die on my own terms, kind of thing.
Yeah, he cuts his wrist and he even like starts to suck the blood out.
Yeah.
To happen faster.
And you could also argue as well that maybe he's even trying to maybe he thinks that he can suck out the like the poison, if you will.
Yeah, I don't think he would do it on the wrist then, though.
Nah.
But yeah.
What I dig about this though, so there's this thing that it does where because he was part cyborg, because he had the cyborg hand, the robot kind of like takes in some of his like knowledge and personality. So that when she's fighting the final battle before she goes to the bathroom to lure it into the shower, like it's like talking to her and using like sound bites of his voice saying that he loves her, almost like the robot saying it, or arguably what it's trying to do is try and like without injecting her try to like give her the fake dream ending and saying, hey, like here's your boyfriend, he loves you, and like you can have this happiness, kind of thing. Or you could interpret it, or this is actually what it reminded me a lot of the pervert, actually, like the like trying to like kind of lure her in under this like false pretense and like was coming towards her. Like I couldn't help but compare the two.
You hear the pervert's voice come through also.
Oh, do you?
He starts singing the song that he was singing earlier.
Yes.
So I guess he's just able to mimic what he's heard.
I guess so, yeah. I assumed it was because he had the cyborg hand, but yeah, maybe you're right. Maybe he just mimics everything that it hears.
But he doesn't know that he's actually giving her clues on how to defeat the cyborg.
Yeah, because he was trying to tell her about the rain, which was the hint that water would. Well, actually, I think that's why I took it as like there's part of the boyfriend in there, because I felt like maybe the whatever was left of the boyfriend from the cyborg hand was intentionally trying to give the hints, like was trying to play parts that would tell her how to defeat it. Oh, maybe I'm reading too much into it.
It's what, yeah, I mean, it's also just what the robot was there, because he kept talking about his dream to the cyborg when he was dying, because he was having that hallucination also.
Yeah. So maybe that was just an intentional thing on his part, so that maybe the information would somehow like pass on to her or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, I sort of interpreted it as just accidental, but it just, in a way, he has helped her. Yeah. Even if neither of them realized it.
Yeah. So he lures her to the shower, and turns on the shower. It actually seems really straightforward and simple once you finally. But obviously, she never thought of that, right? She's just they try fire, which doesn't do a whole lot to a robot, as you imagine.
Yeah. He's like cast iron on the outside.
That said, though, he's got a lot of exposed cables. It could melt and burn through the cables. So,
But then he'll just make more.
He will. He'll just reform. It's kind of designed to like reform. There's some stuff earlier on, but when the junk dealer guy's looking it up, it's like, oh, it can basically repower itself from like any. As long as the sun's out, it can like, okay, it's got power now. So that's maybe why like it being buried in the sand was like how it was staying dead for so long. It's like, okay, it was covered up. But yeah, so I don't know, like the ending's fun, and then like that one good song from earlier starts kicking in again, and you hear that they're going to mass produce these things, and it's this like super cynical like, oh no, this really is a cyberpunk dystopia where we're all screwed.
Well, it's a British film, those Europeans. They're so cynical. They always have to have the downer endings.
It's kind of interesting actually when you think about it, that this is technically a British movie, but it is like all of it is taking shots at like America as the villain that is propelling us through like the horrible future.
Yeah. Hey, the British made us. Okay.
That's an interesting little detail.
No, it is. I mean, it's not the most uncommon thing anyway. I mean, even the day the Earth caught fire is also a little bit like these larger powers are doing all the stuff in the background that's causing us to, larger powers being America and Russia, or the Soviet Union.
We should point out here that the director is not British. Not American for that matter. He's South African, I think. So like that's just he's a complete third party to all this. So it's not specifically like like some sort of weird like British film agenda to like shit on the US. The rest of the world is unified in doing that.
Yeah.
But no, I think it's I don't think it's so much an anti-American thing as it's just because America is the superpower that kind of leads everyone forward. They're naturally the ones that are going to be guilty of like whatever bad things happen in the future.
Yeah, yeah.
So
shit rolls downhill, as they say.
Yes. Yeah. No. I have fun with the robot fight and stuff. I think my favorite part is just the world and how it looks and feels.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, some of the shots are just so beautiful too. Just the way they're composed. It's good directing.
Yeah, there's just a lot of atmosphere.
I've heard the director's a bit problematic, but I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't know the story.
Unfortunately, he was accused of some stuff recently. I can't remember exactly what it was of. I think it was more. I want to say it was leaning more towards harassment and improper, like
conduct.
Improper conduct, and I think I don't know. I don't want to say it exactly. I don't think it was. I don't think it was quite in the same like. I don't think it was the same genre exactly as Weinstein. I think it was more, like mental abuse in terms of like being, like a terrible boss.
Pulled a Kubrick or something.
Or something. I don't know. But again, this is vague memory. I don't remember exactly.
Okay.
Because I remember being excited that he was directing a movie because he did Color Out of Shape with Nicolas Cage, and I remember being excited that he was coming because he hadn't done movies in a long ass time, and then it was this kind of
Color Out of Space.
Color Out of Space. What did I say?
Shape.
Okay, Color Out of Space. Yes, you know what movie I'm talking about. But I've
heard of it. Yeah.
But I was really excited that he was coming back to movies, and then this sort of negative like side of the news came out after that movie had been out, and it was like, oh, that's a shame because that's. I mean, it's a shame that this obviously happened to anyone, but then it's also a shame that this is probably the last movie he's now going to make because of it as well. So, and that's a bit selfish, I admit that, but it's kind of like, I waited so long, and then that's it, it's dead.
Well,
just like
I mean, every time I love a director, there's always a new director I love on the rise.
Oh,
so
sure, yeah.
It's right around the corner, we'll get someone with a unique vision.
But yeah, my looking forward to that movie was based purely on just remembering liking how this one felt, and I think that's its biggest asset is how it feels. Because it's recycling a lot of plot elements from other things. Obviously,
that's okay though.
It's saying a lot of its own specific things about the world and about where we're heading. But the killer robot, the type of setting, like none of them are new, but it's just well executed with its small budget. And there's a couple of distracting things like Lemmy's the taxi driver early on and puts on Motorhead. I could do without that, but whatever. It's not a big deal. It's only 10 seconds.
Well, at least you didn't watch it knowing that you almost had Bill Paxton and Jeffrey Combs.
Look, I know that would have made it a better movie. I absolutely know it would have made it a better movie.
Yeah, the whole movie I was just like, how would Bill Paxton have done this? Amazing.
He doesn't even do good dialogue. You just have Bill Paxton delivering the lines, and they're just more comforting.
Yeah.
Yeah. My God.
He was the best.
Dylan McDermott instead of Bill Paxton. What a sad downgrade. I feel like I'm really shitting on Dylan McDermott here, but come on, Bill Paxton.
He's fine, I guess. I don't really know him from anything. I think maybe rom-coms and TV, right?
I think I know him from like one other thing maybe, and I couldn't tell you what it is off the top of my head. He's in the Olympus Has Fallen movie. Maybe I saw him in that.
Yeah, I don't know. And the other guy, I don't know who he is, but he could have been Jeffrey Combs. We could have watched Jeffrey Combs high, wearing sunglasses.
Yes. I mean, what could have been? But this was just one of these weird little finds that I had. I think I found the Blu-ray, in like 2010 or thereabouts, and was just like, oh, what's this little movie? And it was like, oh, this is kind of cool. It's just kind of a neat little film. And I didn't remember a lot of it. I remembered kind of how it felt and the look of the robot, but I'm glad to say that it kind of still works. It's a very brisk 90-minute movie. It doesn't overstay its welcome. Yeah. So.
Pretty good. Pretty good.
Yeah, and I wouldn't say it's super deep. I think it's got a lot of themes, and it's doing a lot of political stuff, and it's using its setting to say a lot about the world. But I wouldn't say it's like super deep in the way that I don't think we can sit and analyze it in the same way that we would, Well,
like I said earlier, I think there's a lot of biblical stuff going on here too. There's definitely resurrections involved. I mean, our guy's name is Moses,
That's
who
true.
also dies. Believing in a dream in the promised land and all that. Desert imagery and
Jill, doesn't actually come back to life, but to the audience she does, because she looks dead and then turns out to still be alive. So that's kind of, it's not a literal resurrection, but in the terms of us watching the movie, it's like she dies and comes back to life.
it is very much, I think, supposed to represent that. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it could just be a play on that, and even like America's love of the Bible and the love of Christianity.
Hold on a sec. Who does shades represent in the biblical sense?
The Holy Spirit.
Sure. Yeah. Why not? Yeah.
Even Moses is like an Old Testament thing, whereas Jesus is New Testament. So. I don't know.
I don't know either. But there you go. That's hardware. Fun little movie. Don't accept like an amazing thing, but I think if you like the visual style of it and you're cool with kind of just a nice little low budget robot attacks movie, there's fun to be had. There's enough style here that I am quite into it. But it doesn't reinvent the wheel or anything like that. So but there you go. All right. What are you rating the movie then?
I think I'll give it a 7. I do really like the film, and I like a lot of there's some stuff in it that genuinely did impress me, but there's some stuff that I did find pretty jarring, and I didn't enjoy in the movie. So, but I'm still very positive, and I think I would recommend it. So I'm gonna go with a 7.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think I would maybe. I think I'll nudge it slightly and say 7.5. I think I agree generally that that's where it sits, and I think just the style and the feel of the world just appeals to my sci-fi taste so much that I'm just kind of into it. I'm glad that there's a little movie like this. I wish there was more Cyberpunk movies. I really do.
Yeah, the problem is now that technology is so sleek looking that to make something really cyberpunk is harder.
Yeah, the technology can still be sleek and it's still cyberpunk, but I agree the aesthetic of this is something I do want more of. Like, I want that
it's an old future now, though.
Yeah.
It's harder to pull off unless you're making something, specifically of this time period or of a, I don't know, you'd have to change things up a bit. But I do miss it also.
Yeah, I'll take more if they want to do something at some point where we get a nice big budget that chooses this aesthetic. I would love it, but yeah. Also, just a little thing I noticed here, like a face, and I'm like, he seems familiar. So the newscaster who's on one of the news programs in this, because we didn't even talk about a lot of the different weird ads and stuff, and like the weird music videos that were playing at times, because the TV's on quite a lot in this, and it intercuts when they're having sex or whatever. But
yeah, is this around? I guess this is around the time of MTV. So it would have been a lot of like, this is the future. Kids love watching music.
Yes. But the newscaster in one of the scenes is the same actor who plays the flying cop at McDonald's in Fifth Element, which we just did. I thought that was a lot of coincidence.
Oh, how about that?
Yeah. So there you go. He's also in the original Batman movie, playing a goon, apparently. So yeah. I don't know, just thought it's a little coincidence because we just did that. But we're doing lots of movies from the 90s. It makes sense that we'll, encounter some similar actors in some of them. But there you go, that's hardware. Let us know what you think of the movie if you've seen it. What are we doing next time, you might ask? It's a great question.
It's written down somewhere.
Oh, I know what it is. It's Deep Rising. We're doing Deep Rising.
Which one's that?
It's like so it's a monster movie on a boat, and like,
ooh,
it's Stephen Sommers who went on to direct The Mummy.
Okay, well that's a good adventure film. So
yeah, it's more of like a light adventure sci-fi horror, but it's I I thought it would be a fun one to wrap up this current 90s season. Obviously, there's a bunch of 90s sci-fi movies we haven't done, and that just means there's a season 2 somewhere of 90s movies. That's fine. Do you know, what I really noticed actually is how many 97 movies we did. We did like 3 in a row.
I told you 97 was a big year for sci-fi.
No, you said good year, and you didn't like all the movies we did from 97.
Well, no, but like it's still a pretty good year for sci-fi. Any year that we get that many science fiction movies is a good year.
Yeah, 2009 always springs to mind with that.
Yeah.
There's a lot in 2009.
Avatar, Star Trek, District 9.
Moon. Yeah, there's a lot.
That's a good one.
But hey, yeah, so of course you can check out the other shows that we offer, our Male Fuzz movies. We have the Collector's Cut, which is new. Me and David are working through the Dirty Harry films right now, so go check out that. And Screams After Midnight with me and Tim doing the horror movies. We just did a big epic review on Terrifier 2, which was like 2 hours long.
Ooh.
So, have a look at that. But of course, you can support all the content by hitting the super thanks button below, or going over to patreon.com/MaleFuzzTV and getting some bonuses for your trouble. What are the main 2 bonus shows they get if they sub, Tara?
Why, that's right, Peter. If you guys enjoy our reviews, then good news. On Patreon, we have even more. You can get our reviews for our more like B-movie categories of films that don't really make the cut, like the Tremor sequels, which we've now done all of them. So you can check out the Burt Gummer adventure saga over there.
For the love of God, please promote the newest one, please. The Lawnmower Man.
Lawnmower Man.
Jesus. We did it like last week.
Look, if you don't like me doing this, I'll gladly stop.
No. I want you to do it, and I want you to be good at it. I believe in you, 110%.
We've been doing this like 3 years. I'm not going to get good at it.
110%.
I'm just going to be fine at it. Okay. The other thing we do, which is really exciting, is that we just kind of hang out and film it and talk about movies that we've watched that aren't sci-fi, but you get to know us a bit better. We do fun little quizzes that we've prepared for each other that are sci-fi related. So,
and those 2
test
things.
your skills.
Yes, and those 2 last things you said are in a show.
Yep, it's called the Atomic Meltdown movie show. Here's a little preview because Peter's having a meltdown right
now. Oh dear. But yes, you can go just like go to Patreon, read what's in the tiers. They'll hopefully clarify some of the points Tara just made.
Yes, and there's more stuff, not just with our sci-fi stuff, but like other people's stuff. So there's plenty of things over on Patreon. Yeah,
and if you want to hear us talk about a couple of TV shows over at Male Fuzz TV, you can check us out. Doing classic Twilight Zone, doing new and classic Quantum Leap, and also Babylon 5, which so
much stuff.
Well, B5's almost done, and we're only doing classic Quantum Leap when the new Quantum Leap's on break, which is just now. So we just started the new Quantum Leap.
Yeah.
Or the old Quantum Leap, I should say. Anyway, that's the show. Thank you very much for joining us, everyone. We appreciate it. Of course, you can support us for just liking, subscribing, dinging the bell for notifications, rating us 5 stars on iTunes, or wherever you get your podcast from. All those things help. And I'll finally just thank our Patreon producers for the month. So thank you to Tyler Hess, Cindy Palacios, David Sharp, Board Now, Christopher Moy, David Brown, Al Tradesman, and Alison M. Fordyce. Thank you very much to everyone and all of our patrons for keeping the show afloat. Thank you kindly. This has been the Atomic Cinema Experiment. We've been talking about hardware.
For the patrons.
The audio podcast people have no idea what just happened, but you don't want to know. It's okay. Keep watching science fiction movies, guys. We'll see you next time in Computer and Salsa.